無 And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fated Continuum, the Legendary Journeys. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, of course, is one of my good brothers here in the temple, the man behind the Wanderer's Library, good brother Sig.
I'm back, bitches. Sorry for being absent for a bit.
So, we are, we are back once again with a interesting entry. And no, Zan will not be in these for a bit. Ah,
Poor guy's
the
got some stuff going on,
yeah,
and that's really all I'll say on that.
mm-mm. It's not my story to tell, so I will not tell it. But like I said, we are back at it. With this time around with Final Fantasy IX, and thus wrapping up the PS1 era. Ah. Now, with this one, I have a bit of a complicated relationship with it. Uh, but I will note, this was directed by Hiroyuki Ito, so once again, put some respect on that man's name.
Definitely.
But I have seen a lot of people talk about how much they loved this entry, and I feel like there's been a bit of gaslighting, a bit of revisionist history regarding the reception of Final Fantasy IX. Because when it came out, there was a bit of divisiveness. You had some of the older crowd who enjoyed the callback to a more fantastical style after two games leaning into modern and futuristic work. And you had the younger crowd who had started with 7 and 8 that just didn't get it. They just didn't get what the deal was. That was the mindset at the time. And yeah, obviously there's reinterpretations now, but I don't want anyone to whitewash the way people felt about the game in the year 2000.
God, it's been years. I remember first getting that disc back of that game back in Toys R Us when that was still around. Funny enough, I still have that same disc,
Yeah.
or have that same game.
Even though Toys R Us was within, not, I won't say not, it was within my area. I think I only got one game out of Toys R Us when it was around, and that was Wild 9.
A Wild 9, good fucking game. I love it.
Mm-hmm. But coming from the Midwest as I do, Funko Land had a much bigger footprint.
I know a Funko Land. We had one when I lived in San Jose for a little while.
Mm-hmm. And it's also the reason I had such a long love-hate relationship with Game Informer, because, well, they were headquartered in my home state.
Ugh, my condolences.
Yeah, I know a lot of don't get me wrong, a lot of people hate Game Informer for good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I just was a OG hater.
Fair enough.
Like, I am the type of person who would look at them and go, there is nothing about you I like. I don't like the way you walk. I don't like the way you talk. I don't like your face. And I know nowadays poking fun of bad reviewers is something of an internet sport, but
it's not even a fun sport anymore, right? At this point, it's low-hanging fruit.
I think at this point the fruit is on the ground and rotting. Now, Vanguardian asks why do the models look so different than the ones in 8 and 10? Here is something that needs to be considered. for whatever reason, there is this narrative that the reason 9 went the direction it did was because of how divisive 8 was. That is not true. The reason that was given, and I was reading the articles and interviews at the time, so don't give me any guff, was they wanted to do a callback to Final Fantasy's past, since this would be the last entry with a single digit. It was never stated about it being done because this would be the last on the PS1, but just that it would be the last with a single digit in the title.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was showcased in 2000, the idea was it was going to be a nod to the past, while 10 and 11, which were developed around the same time at that point, was to be a nod to the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 and 11 were very early in development around that time. And I think the fact that they were developing 3 major projects at once at a given time is maybe the reason things got so chaotic. Because
Yeah, well, they ended up merging into with Enix like a couple years later, back in 2000, if I remember right.
Enix, also Taito was part of that deal, which I think was a pot sweetener.
Oof.
But
Taito
Enix,
has some good shit.
yeah, Enix in the late 90s was not in a very good position.
I do remember that.
Because the last major Dragon Quest, Dragon Quest 7, which, timely for me to bring that up given recent developments. That
Yeah, I completely forgot that was coming.
Yeah, Dragon Quest 7 didn't stick around all that well. Largely for reasons I've talked about in the past. The insistence on tradition ended up biting Dragon Quest in the ass.
Even in the 3DS era, I don't think it stuck around very long.
Well, the ones with the 3DS were either spin-offs or remakes,
Yeah.
which that requires a different tact. But the issue when it comes to Dragon Quest, as I've mentioned many times in the past and will probably keep mentioning, is the fact that, well, everybody was experimenting with what you could do with a console RPG. Dragon Quest had their feet firmly in the mud. In terms of not changing up the formula or even doing any sort of self-experimentation. And that ultimately worked against them. I suppose I could also bring up Ultraman in that regard, though. With Ultraman's tradition problems, that's a bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it was out of their hands. But when it comes to 9, I also remember 9 being the first FF that had a legit full-on art book. And this was right around the time we were starting to see more and more art books show up in bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
There was also the notoriety of having probably the worst strategy guide of the PS1 era, because of the whole play online shit.
Oh, right. I remember that shit. That was back... God, yeah, that was back before 11 came out. Little did I know of the horrors that would come with that even today.
Yeah. Where the idea was they would put more info on these strategy guides on Play Online. It didn't work, and it's probably one of the Brady games at the time had some decent strategy guides.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the two main people when it came to strategy guides around that time were Brady Games and Prima.
Mm-hmm.
Prima was decent on the cheap. Brady Games was where you want if you wanted something more comprehensive. Um, but when it came to when it came to when it came to that strategy guide, there was a lot of there's more info on Play Online, or just stonewalling you in terms of what was in the damn book, which is
I
why
rem-
it got mocked so ruthlessly.
I remember early on when I had Final Fantasy IX, I would go on there every day during or after school
Hmm.
and look at stuff on that for FF9 to apply for when I was doing that run.
Hmm. Around that same time, I remember reading through strategy guide segments in GamePro, and uh, there were times where GamePro was actually better than Brady Games. Like for example, with FF8, they actually had guidance on the Ultimecia fight,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Brady Games version didn't. And on the other hand, in GamePro's version, they also suggested casting Shell on the brothers,
Good lord.
which yeah reduces the regen on themselves, but also reduces damage from all of your stuff. When the real solution is, of course, cast Float on everybody. On yourself, so the worst damaging attack they can hit you with is Mower, and completely miss Mad Cow Special, and on them so that they can't do regen. But on the other hand, they had a better one with that. But despite all the love that 9 gets, I do feel much if if some of the games that I like are going to get put through the ringer, I'm well within my rights to put other people's beloved entries through the ringer as well, because we hold these truths to be self-evident that all are cremated equal. Because there's a couple design issues I have with 9, and a couple story issues I have with 9. When it comes to the design issue, I have to talk about the whole learn from equipment thing. I have gone on record multiple times as saying that kind of system is better in a CRPG than it is in a console style RPG. And the main reason I say that is because of the glacially slow pace of AP gain. I mean, it's not as bad as 5, but it's still pretty bad. And
Yeah.
it completely runs counter to the way progression tends to work in console style RPGs, going all the way back to the original Dragon Quest. You know, the whole loop of the whole town field dungeon repeat thing that I've talked about.
Yep.
That sort of thing just isn't in. It's just something that doesn't quite fit in when it comes to the whole learn from equipment, because you're always going to be trying to get better equipment as you progress through the story. Now, on the other hand, I like the idea of trance. I didn't like the execution with the fact that you're force activated to do trance as soon as the gauge is full.
Yep.
Even if it's a random ass fight that is just part of you grinding. And the impact of trance's effects are all over the place.
Yeah, and I mean, really only consistent with like Zidane, whose entire skill set changes.
Mm-hmm. Now some people do get some changes, like say Vivi and Aiko getting double casting.
which was awesome.
But on the other hand, you have characters like Steiner and Amarant, who, unless you really dug into the files, or you wouldn't really know what theirs was. Now with
Hmm.
Amarant, it just meant that throw affected all enemies instead of being a single target effect. In the case of Steiner, it just means his strength is tripled. Which, okay, fine, that fits him being a knight and all, but that's kind of lame.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was the whole thing of the magic sword motif with Steiner, which we will get to. But that's
Which
a
I
bit of
really
cool.
wish they would have used more of.
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if there were plans to do so, but those plans got cut because,
Hmm.
like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was on the cutting room floor, including the fact that at one point, 9 was going to have the job system. And we have concept art that shows as such.
Yeah, I think you showed that in the monastery.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of concept art that wasn't used, and some character designs that were completely unused. I think the idea at one point was to have different races that had access to the job system, had two different jobs, which is a concept that would be revisited in Tactics Advance. But there are also some interesting concepts, like a Dragoon of Leviathan versus a Dragoon of Bahamut. Or the or some of the like I think Zidane's concept art was there was an early prototype of that in the form of the I think it, I think it was the fencer concept art. Uh, and there were a few others. It is somewhat amusing that for the longest time I figured the arc summon was supposed to be a reference. I just didn't know what it was. And it was and turns out, yeah, it was a reference. It was a reference to a very early Square project.
Huh, never knew that.
Yeah, it was a Square. It was a mech project. I think it was on the NES. It never came stateside.
Huh.
But in addition to that, there were some weapon concepts that just weren't used. Uh, and some art designs that weren't used at all that are still in the concept arts that make for an interesting read. Uh, and something, but Zan has ranted about this in the past, but another issue was as a I guess a beach story after some of the major shifts in the narrative. I think this was around the start of Disc 3. All of a sudden, we take a break to participate in a Tetramaster tournament. Now,
Yep.
Tetramaster was of course Nine's successor to Triple Triad from 8. And if I'm being honest, I've never been a big fan of Tetramaster, both the original version or when it came back for FF11.
Yep, I remember that.
As a card game in and of itself, it's fine. As a mini game, it is not fine. And the reason I phrase it like that is when it comes to mini games, they should be very quick affairs. Think of the better mini games in say Mario Party, and how a lot of them last less than 2 minutes. And the worst mini games are the really long ones, like the floating down the river one in one of the early Mario parties.
Mm-hmm.
And and Triple Triad, you can do a match of that in less than a minute. Tetramaster, a little bit less so. It feels more like a full-on card game than it does a mini game. That's where the problem is. And on the other hand, there's just the principal issue of forcing it into part of the story, where if you haven't engaged with it at that point, you're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Which was why I had such an issue with it. There's also the fact that the final boss, Necron, which, look, spoiler statute of limitations has passed, so
Mm-hmm.
Necron just comes right the hell out of nowhere. I mean, there's talk that Kuja was operating in the service of some higher power, but after you defeat Kuja's transform, he just shows right up completely out of nowhere, and suddenly he's the final boss.
Mm-hmm.
I get what they were going for, especially with the design, but it doesn't work. Because Necron hasn't been talked up at any form whatsoever.
Nope.
And say what you will about the fight with Ultimecia. At least Ultimecia was built up.
Yep.
You know, built up as this manipulator in the shadows. Whereas if there's anybody who was the focus, it was Kuja. I've heard some say that there may have been a concern that Kuja felt too similar to Kefka.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a stretch. Especially since Kuja's not a nihilist. If anything, Kuja's whole villain arc was more because he had the same kind of fear that Proto Man had, of that fear of being replaced.
Yep.
Because, well, Zidane was supposed to be the replacement. And also, I know I've ranted about him plenty of times, but fuck Ozma. I consider Ozma to be the worst hidden boss in any FF. I would rather take the bullshit hidden bosses in Tri-Ace games over him. and hell, I would sooner take SNK Boss Syndrome over dealing with Ozma again because he fucking cheats. Oh, in more recent years, I did discover the Memoria mod for the Steam version of FF9, which is more of a is one of those um, mod collections. Which does have a few interesting things in there. One of them um, being able to fully recruit Beatrix as a party member and use her in battles.
He was godlike. I remember that.
Um, a being able to manually turn on trance as well as drop ATB and go with um, and go with a full turn-based setup.
He
That
didn't even need trance.
yeah. But with all of that said, I think this is as good a time as any to shift into how one might convert the cast into Legend Edition.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Mm-hmm. So, the first entry of we start with our protagonist, in this case Zidane Tribal. I know some people pronounce it as Zidane. You're wrong, by the way. It is somewhat amusing that when we get to Dissidia, Zidane is voiced by the same person in Japanese who would voice Edward Elric, that being Romy Park.
Oh, cool.
Which amuses me both because they're both so damn short. But so here's where we get to, and here's where we start off with an interesting question. Should characters like Zidane and Vivi be considered should get the android race because they are technically constructs?
I mean, that is an interesting take considering, yeah, like you said, they're both artificial.
Artificial that are supposed to be, in fact, something I don't think a lot of people have thought about is that the fusion plan that Terra was trying to do isn't far removed from the Gestalt plan in Nier. But the problem is that outside of the origin, a lot of the things that you'd associate with a artificial life doesn't quite fit. Because at the end of the day, what what the genomes are clones, and I'm not sure clones are enough to get the android part. So I think the race for Zidane should still be human.
Yeah.
Uh, as far as class, it is definitely expert.
I was thinking that too. I was like, he doesn't have enough to be like a warrior. Definitely not, and he's definitely not an adept.
Mhm. And as far as the jobs, thief is a must, I believe.
Absolutely, because his main thing is steal, and if you manage to steal off of basically every monster throughout the game, thievery becomes godlike.
Hmm. Uh, and as far as the other two, this is where things get a bit tricky. But I think let me see what what I had originally done when I had used an aggregate version instead of just focusing on 9.
I
Uh,
honestly want to add Dervish into that, just
I can
because
go.
of the use of thief swords.
Hmm. In fact, I did add Dervish. The 3 that I had originally were Thief, Dynamo, and Dervish.
I can
Um,
actually go with that. That does make sense.
though I think due to in order to have something that's equivalent to trance, I think Dervish can be swapped out for something else.
So for the trans part, are you thinking something like yokai?
Yeah, I'm just trying to nail down which yokai it should be.
Let me see. We go to the.
Because when I look at the Dyne abilities,
I'm trying to think of the best for that as well.
uh, given the description of a lot of the Dyne abilities, this might be a bit of a stretch, but I was thinking, um, Ifrit.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning toward that because I've been looking. I looked toward the other ones. I'm like, yeah, just because of title flame alone, um, that'd probably be the best to go with. I wanted to say Knights of the Round, but I'm like, no, that doesn't fit any of the Dyne abilities.
Yeah, but free energy is more of an explosive thing. Um, Tidal Flame is fire. Scoop Art is an energy attack. Um, Shift Break and Stellar Circle 5 are more wind aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Mayo Twister is another energy. Same with Solution 9 and Grand Lethal. And actually, instead of Ifrit, um, maybe Bahamut.
Yeah, because a lot of the Dyne abilities, aside from one, are mostly non-elemental.
Non-elemental and when it comes to some of the higher stuff like Umbral Strikes for Bahamut, uh, and and actually Impulse is going to be a better example of the fact that if you
Yeah, cross impact would be good for like scoop arts.
mhm. He doesn't there isn't a wave effect to call upon some of the others, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that Bahamut is already doing is going to fit,
Mm-hmm.
especially since Ruin and Ruin series spells are kind of an energy bolt as it is.
Yep.
Uh, and something I should note, and this is going to be fairly obvious, but a lot of the times when an effect was just does big damage in the video game, those kind of effects were either reinterpreted or scrapped because they don't translate well enough. But then we have Vivi Orientier, or Ornitier. Uh, so with
Clearly got to be the mage.
Mhm. So with the black mages, that the question was, would black mages count under android? And I'd still say yes.
Yeah, I was about to say yeah because they're constructs created from the mist.
Yeah, Vivi, I'm a little bit more willing to go with the whole android idea in the same way that android could just as well be golems, which a the whole monsters from the mist, that would basically make Vivi a homunculus, as well as the other black mages. Which, given that a lot of his arc has the whole "Am I a real boy?", which is something you see a lot with characters who are robots or golems or the like.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see, mage. Uh, obviously, when it comes to focus, well, we already have that as a feat.
Yep. Got to be black mage front and center, without a doubt.
And hey, because of the way I have the system, he can actually learn Waterga.
Mm-hmm. Second, I would definitely put in Cosmic Mage.
Because of spells like Doomsday.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't he also learn Haste, or is that another thing?
Um,
I don't remember if it was him that learned Haste or if it was someone else.
so let me see. Let me see He does learn Slow. He does learn Comet and Death, and then as well as Meteor So yeah, I can see Cosmic Mage.
Mhm. And because of his ability to dip into, double casting, I would definitely say Ravager for the last one.
Yeah. I mean, Double cast is the capstone for Red Mage, but I feel like Red Mage should be saved for somebody else.
Yeah, Red Mage, I don't feel fits him.
So then we have the Princess, Garnet Tel Alexandros the 17th. Um, so let's see. So this is going to be another mage.
Mm-hmm.
Summoner and white mage. I feel are pretty obvious.
Yep.
In fact, both Ico and Garnet are gonna end up having that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and incidentally, Garnet's transform is another one that its effect isn't one that's going to be all that intuitive because it just means the last summoned Eidolon gets summoned again.
Mm-hmm.
But
Our last one, this one's kind of a toughie, actually. I'm leaning again toward Cosmic Mage, but I'm not sure about that one.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say. Let me look at the.
This might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say Scholar.
Which is actually,
considering how well studied she is.
Mm-hmm. Instead of Scholar, I think it has to be Noble.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, actually, that didn't even come into my mind.
mm-hmm.
But looking at it now, I'm like, yep, that is definitely right.
Yeah, I know that there have been I know that there's been talk here and there of homebrewing a job that requires 2 slots, but I'm not going to say no to that, but I'm going to say make sure that it's not just number go up.
Yeah.
Especially since that sort of it kind of reminds me of the class setup that's in Double Cross, where if you go pure 1 subclass, you're trading raw power for versatility. You're trading versatility for raw power, but I never really built the jobs to be about that. It was always about giving a variety of actions. But then we have good old Rusty, Adalbert Steiner.
Rusty.
And you are now imagining Steiner in an outfit befitting the Lyran Commonwealth.
Given his low MP, I would not say that. I mean, I want to say adept for his class, especially considering the magic sword ability he gets when Vivi's in the party. but I might lean a little towards warrior because he does. I mean, while he does have pretty devastating magical sword attacks, he doesn't really have the MP to. At least if I remember right, it's been a long time since I played 9.
Mm-hmm. Uh, apparently, at one point early in development, Steiner was supposed to be the captain of the Paladin Corps. This was before the character of Beatrix was added.
Love me, Beatrix.
Uh, the idea with him was that he would follow orders too literal.
I mean, that is pretty much him to a T. So,
Well, the example given is when told to charge forward, he'd refuse to turn around when other people are warning him, "Dude, there's a bomb right behind you."
yep, it's like, dude, bomb, move now. Ha, I'll not fall for your stupid tricks.
Mm-mm.
And then turned around. Oh, shit. I'm trying to pull up. I'm trying to pull up his freaking stats because I'm just like, I'm trying to remember about his MP growth. I don't think it was very much. Oh,
Yeah.
there it is. Stats.
And to
Okay.
continue the references in the French, I didn't even know this until I looked this up. In the French version, he was named Edward Adelbert Steiner
Oh wow.
because Edward would be a more common name that French people would know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Oh yeah, he had some of the lowest MP, definitely. So yeah, warrior for the class for sure.
and as far as jobs, well, knight.
Knight first, front and center.
Uh, I would. I know it talks about him having some elements of samurai and mystic knight as well as dark knight and paladin, but that's way too much, and a lot of that is just dips here and there.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, yeah, he. As far as his growth is concerned, I mean, his highest asset is his strength. Because man, could he hit hard.
But I would say, as tempting as it would be to go with paladin, magic knight
Doesn't fit him.
is a must.
Yep, Magic Knight.
And I'd say the third one should be sentinel.
Yes. Definitely.
Let's see. So then we have Freya Crescent.
Freya.
Obviously going with Burmesian for the race.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
I have a bit of fan art in my archives of Zidane hitting on Freya, trying to remember her name. It's like, you're married, Joan? Then no, you dolt.
I mean, isn't that how she was introduced anyway? How he had flirted with her in the past?
Well, that and and the whole. As soon as I finish my drink, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yep.
Although I could never get. Though it was always her winning the Festival of the Hunt. I could never win that. But
Well, I thought that was the idea because if you let her win the Festival of the Hunt, you get some better stuff from it.
but obviously, I'd I'd say Freya would fit Adept.
Yes. With Dragoon being front and center.
Hmm. And as far as the, I know some people have said that that Freya is a Dragoon slash Red Mage. I
Nope.
don't see it.
Nope. Definitely not. I think the reason they go with the Red Mage is because of the look of her outfit. Which, I could understand, making that distinction.
Hmm.
But her magical ability really isn't there.
Pretty much. I would say Weapon Master is another one to go with.
Because, man, she does some big damage with those spears of hers.
Hmm. And as far as the third one, which has to be an Adept, this might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm actually thinking Blue Mage. And the reason I'm going with that is several of the dragon arts that she has are not far removed from breath attacks. In fact, one of them is a breath attack.
Yep. Doesn't she also have Lancet?
They call it Lancer, but it's the same effect.
Yeah, Lancer. Yeah, Lancer. Raise Wind, which is basically, well, it's not quite White Wind because White Wind is a different effect than Raise Wind.
Hmm. But I do think that that's a way to have the sort of variety that she has with the dragon effects.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the ones that she has got carried over into the Blood of the Dragon effects for Dragoon. However, then we have Kina.
Ah, yes. Good old Kina. The best chef ever.
Hmm. Unfortunately, we do have the Qs as a race in Ultimania.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as far as class, I think this one has to be Adept.
Yep, because Blue Mage.
Hmm. And Blue Mage is front and center with Kina.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's see. When it comes to
See, let me take a look and see if I can find some stuff on the gameplay. There we go. Let me see here.
So this is going to be one of those tricky ones because so much of Kina is tied to blue magic in game.
Yeah. And let me see here. Let's see, Kina. Decent HP growth. That's before modifiers. Has a decent pool of magic. Decent pool of magic. Of course, they're a blue mage. They're not going to have much in the way of strength. That did not work at all. See, my first thought was Rune Knight, but I'm thinking, wait, Kina didn't have any freaking ways to absorb MP.
Although, looking at the support abilities, let me throw a curveball here and add in Merchant.
I was actually looking through the independent jobs, and I'm like, you know what? That actually kind of fits. My initial thought was Spirit Master because, I mean, let's face it, most of the stuff that Kina gets are status effects.
And Spirit Master is a very good manipulator of that, as well as being a very good support. So I could see Spirit Master.
Or, hear me out, Oracle.
Okay.
It's like, or hear me out, Oracle. Because, I mean, yeah, again, statuses, but the Oracle inflicts different boons and banes, offering them way to support.
Yeah, I can go with that. But
yeah.
Then we have Eiko Carol.
Eiko! We already established that mage, white mage, and summoner.
And I know summoners are treated as a kind of race. For the purposes of this, I'm not doing that.
No, she's definitely human, or at least it fits with considering what she is.
Yeah. Humanoid with a horn is not enough to be a separate race. That's far more of a storytelling conceit. But mage for class.
And because of her use of flutes as one of her weapons, especially using them in her magic, I'm going to go with Entertainer.
Yep, I can go with that. Like in the game itself, the main difference between her and Garnet is Garnet has better summons, but isn't as good at support, whereas Aiko's kind of the opposite. Then we have the most oddball of the bunch, and I have a sneaking suspicion was a last-minute addition during development, and that is Amarant Coral.
I mean, I look at his I'm looking at his concept art of like, geez, he was a completely different beast.
Pretty much.
And I'm not sure that he really has anything they could use with the throw commands, considering that's one of his major things.
So a lot of his support abilities are not far removed from what you'd expect of monks, but
Mhm.
given what he's got, I think I have a decent setup.
All right, let's see what you got.
So warrior for the class, and as far as jobs, I'm thinking monk, especially since claw
His main
weapons
weapons are
are,
claws.
yeah, and those have always been associated with monks since day one.
Hmm.
Um, ninja,
Yeah, ninja was definitely on my list, especially considering um, a lot of his flare effects are support. So,
and chemist.
yes, actually,
You know, give the guy who throws shit more opportunities to throw shit.
well, not just that, but a lot of his, again, his flare abilities are for HP and MP recovery, and distribute would be perfect for that.
Hmm. Yeah, Amrat's setup is pretty damn
It's
cool, but
weird.
it's cool. It is weird. It is unfortunate that you get him so late, so a lot of people didn't really develop him because of the bad habit with a lot of console RPGs of new recruits being significantly underleveled compared to the rest of the party.
Hmm.
Some games were bigger culprits of this than others. Looking at you, Triace.
Oh God.
It's like, hey, hey, that guy who was kicking your ass earlier, you have him in your party now, and he's 20 levels lower than you.
It's like that meme of fighting against the final boss in a fighting game when you get him as a playable character.
But it is somewhat amusing that a lot of Nine's development was in the Hawaii branch.
Oh wow.
And as far as the reason for the visual design they went with, apparently they've cited the Dark Crystal as a major influence.
Oh, I could definitely see that.
Uh, which also means it makes sense why for people who played it as a kid, they have a significant attachment to it.
Hmm.
Uh, but let me see if I can. When we did 8, one of the things that we did was look at um, the different summons and what would be a rough equivalent in our system, and I think that's worth doing here.
Hmm?
Let me see if I can.
So let me pull up the different summons here in 9. Because if I recall correctly, Aiko and Garnet had a couple of different summons between the two of them.
Yes. So let's see. With Garnet, we have Shiva, Ifrit, Ramu. Atomos. Atomos' whole thing is gravity. Which I think there's the question of, okay, how would one do the who would be the closest equivalent we have to Atomos, who is doing the gravity, is essentially doing a gravity spell on steroids, but I don't think we really have one that can be an equivalent, simply because of the fact that those sort of percentage effects were something I intentionally chose to avoid. But let's see, Odin.
Well, if I were, yeah, I was about to say, if I were going to go with a Tomos, my guess would probably be Diablos being the equivalent, since Odin has his own equivalent in 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, Aiko has Fenrir, Phoenix, Carbuncle, and Madine.
Yeah. I will note Arc would also be... I know it would be tempting to say that Arc would be Diabolos as well because of shadow damage. I'm leaning more that Arc would be Eden.
Yeah, Eden.
Because, well, they're both
Like
big-ass
bar none.
ships.
Yep.
But, let's see, Aiko has Fenrir, which is doing either earth or wind damage. But only if Maiden Prayer is equipped. So, I think with Fenrir it should be Titan.
Mm-hmm.
The Phoenix we already have. Carbuncle we already have. And
Madine is a holy elemental.
Alexander.
So Alexander. And considering that it takes both Garnet and Aiko to summon Alexander, yeah, I feel that's fitting.
Yep. For a split second, I was thinking about whether or not I'd put in some sort of house rule about the gemstones tying to Eidolon powers. I decided, you know what? That is way too specific. I don't do specific items in terms of mechanics in that way. So no, that's off the table.
Besides, you already have Magicite and Materia for that.
But and yeah, that's not as many ones that I had to put in compared to 8. But it is still a good amount. Although I will admit the short version of Terrestrial Rage always makes me laugh. You know, because it's a giant fist that's an eject button. Of course I'm gonna laugh at that.
Yes, of course. What better way than to send your enemies flying?
Mm-hmm. Especially since Terrestrial Rage that doesn't even have Fenrir doing his usual stuff. It's just him sitting on a giant owl.
Mm-hmm.
But in one of the groups I was in, there was a discussion of how some developers in Japan will do these things that are bad design just for the sake of a joke, and I'm like, no, we need more of that.
Yeah, we need a lot more gags.
Uh, and I have some of that in Legend Edition. I'd say the biggest example by far is just the existence of the merchant job.
Mhm. I don't know. After playing Ragnarok and online for a while, Merchant is nothing to be sneezed at.
You listen close, you can still hear one of them going cart cart revolution. Is
I
yeah,
hated that skill so much.
is I
Or
am
that or fucking loud exclamation.
mhm. Like I was there with Ragnarok Online as much as anyone else. Merchant was fucking busted. And
Especially
Blacksmith.
if, I was about to say, especially if you got into Blacksmith and you went pure freaking fighter. My god, the buffs that Blacksmith gets were just god tier.
I think we've crossed a certain threshold when Blacksmith is a better fighter than the actual fighters.
No kidding.
Uh,
Yeah, when Blacksmith can outclass even a freaking knight.
mm-hmm. And that
And that's just in terms of raw power.
mhm. And obviously there's stuff that one could do that the other couldn't, but
Of course.
because of the way that game was designed, most of the time you're thinking of, I need to out damage them before they out damage me.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to check the Ultimania guide to see if I put in some of the swallows. I don't think.
Now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go back in my thing here. Good thing I have the library computer set up.
Yep. So it would probably be under special. So it's not under any of the special weapons, and it's not in the it's not in any of the variable weapons, which variable is always for for doing the weapon swap. Yeah, I didn't have it under staves. So let me look at the entry for just the regular weapon list.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking into too. I see Swallow under spear weapons actually, or reach weapons. So it's definitely there, but the actual weapons themselves, I don't see. So there's some potential for some homebrew in there.
Yep. A lot of the weapons in 9 are ones we've got accounted for in some form. I think the only one that might be a bit tricky is the rackets that Garnet had.
Yeah, but those would qualify with the great template, and they're just large bludgeon weapons. I mean, it can be done from what I can see.
Yep, and never mind. I have them. I have Tiger Racket as a missile weapon.
Ha! It does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Although maybe it's just me, but whenever I saw the rackets, I kept thinking of a stick you'd use in lacrosse.
That's what I thought too. I was like, wait, what the hell is this when I first played it? I'm like, yeah, okay, it does elemental damage. It's pretty good, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But and I know there's a question of would I do the whole learning from equipment thing? No.
Yeah, I don't blame you there.
I do think that because my equipment system is less linear, there's a chance to do it, but the problem is then you'd have to figure out what ability is getting assigned to what equipment, and I don't have the whole equipment slots for head, body, legs, accessory, that kind of thing, because I wasn't interested in doing that.
No, and things would become even more unbalanced by that point, and I know I'm using that term very loosely considering what Legend Edition is.
I think a better way to put it is that it would be putting another plate to spin on the GM.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I get, yes, they would add another level of customization, but at what cost?
I feel like that kind of customization would be better served by reinterpreting the affiliation system as a fighting school you're advancing in, which is something I have considered when it comes to bringing in some of the school systems that are in Sword World into Legend Edition, since that is something I want to do in the future.
Well, that's something we'll definitely have to sit down and, brainstorm on.
So, with that said, what I am going to do is make sure that this gets added onto the list of Google Docs that I have, and that will be added into the list. So let me take care of that. And it's just a bit of copy paste. It's just copying it over from the notepad I had into a full thing.
Right.
And make sure to do a raw copy paste so it's not doing that weird spacing thing I don't like. I do not like 1.15 spacing. I know that's a quirk of copy editing, but just because I understand it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Of course.
So, give it that there. And I kind of wish that its ordering in the folder wasn't so anally about alphabetizing. But let me take care of that there. So those of you watching who are in the Discord, you will see that updated in the homebrew forum. So let me. And I didn't put up a class conversion for Cloudbreaker because there wasn't enough juice on the squeeze. Let's see, where the hell is it? Ah, there it is. So all right, so that takes care of that. So with that in mind, in about 2 weeks we will be back here on this series tackling Final Fantasy X, and I honestly think it'd be best to handle 10 and 10-2 in one go and not have them be separate episodes.
Ooh, that's gonna be fun.
You know, since both of them are still taking place in the same areas. The same reason I lobbied for doing the After Years, even though there wasn't a whole lot to go on.
Hmm.
And you only had maybe a few new characters in there with Leonora, Luca, Theodore.
Mm-hmm. Well, the only thing I didn't carry over was the whole union system, because I've considered doing something like the combo setup you see in Chrono Trigger or similar effects. The only reason I haven't done is I feel that that's, until I can figure it out, it's too contextual as is.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of the abilities that you see with that are ones that only really work with those characters. And I need to find a way to have it be agnostic, but also not have it be a wall of text like some games I've seen do it.
Yep.
And I think it is possible. I just haven't figured out how to go about it yet. But 10 and 10-2 will be what we cover in 2 weeks. And next week I may have an interview with the dev of Silent Lake in the early afternoon, but after that will be the return of Reflections of Gaia, as we are going to begin our look proper into the setting of Gaia, starting with the surface part of things. So the old and new continent, at least what we have of the new continent, because Gaia Volume 2 never got translated, as well as things like the different factions. And factions are a big damn part of Gaia. They're about as big of a big damn deal within that setting as stables are for Puro-Res promotions like Dragon Gate. You know, where about 90% of the entire roster is in some stable.
Right.
Which is why I think Carlos actually understood the whole taking influence from Japanese work a bit more than I think he gets credit for.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a story for next week. And of course, later this week there will be a few things we've got coming down the pipe. One of them being doing a couple one-shots on Thursday, and one of them is going to be a dip into a lighter Japanese tabletop called Steam Build Writers. Another project coming to us thanks to Lion Wing that is a duet-focused TTRPG.
Nice.
One that is heavily inspired by rally racing. The idea being one person's the driver, the other person's the navigator. Which also means it's an excuse for me to talk about Rally Group B and how fucking nuts that that era was.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the difference between track racing and point racing. But I suppose, and of course on Friday we'll be wrapping up our take on Magic Punk.
That's a fun one.
So keep an out for that, and of course there'll be a few other surprises coming in the next few days, including my first text interview, which will hopefully be next month. So that should be fun to explore. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
You go on the trail.